Wake up! You've been turned into a Pokemon. Once a human, you're now living in the world of Pokemon with a great task set upon you, to save the world. Of course, we accept this role with pleasure and do everything we can in our new Pokemon form to save the day. But do you ever stop and ask, why me? Why was I turned into a Pokemon? And who makes that choice anyway? These are the kinds of questions I want to delve into in this video, by taking a look at the reasons a human is called into the Pokemon world, and by who the human is called. But before we get into it, let's get something out of the way first. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon 2, the Explorers games, are not something I'm considering in this video, and here's why. In Explorers, the player character is a human from the future of darkness, brought into the past and turned into a Pokemon. It could be argued that maybe the protagonist was a human brought into the Pokemon world's future of darkness to help Grovyle, and then brought to the past, and then turned into a Pokemon. But then the whole thing gets messy, because then you wonder why the protagonist wasn't turned into a Pokemon in the first place. I mean, if they were brought to the future to help Grovyle save the world, why weren't they turned into a Pokemon at that point? It's a lot to consider. And in the same vein, Super Mystery Dungeon involves the player existing as a human in the Pokemon world long before the events of the game, so it's another one I won't be looking at in this video. For the sake of simple discussion, we'll just be taking a look at Rescue Team and Gates to Infinity, as they are games where we know a human is specifically transported from the human world to the Pokemon one during the events of the game. With that out of the way, let's start by talking about the Pokemon who we know have the power to bring humans to the Pokemon world. When you think of characters that bridge the human and Pokemon worlds, you probably think of Gardevoir first. After all, she is the mysterious voice that begins speaking to you through your dreams after your arrival in the world of Rescue Team. Over time, she reveals that you were chosen and destined to save the Pokemon world. Why does she have the authority to decide that? Well, because she's an agent of spirits, of course. Huh? What is an agent of spirits? Well, that's never really made super clear or elaborated upon tremendously, but we can use the facts given to us to come up with the best answer we can. I think that an agent of spirits is a being that doesn't exist in the human world or the Pokemon world, but exists between them and can manifest themselves in dreams. As they exist between the worlds, they have the power to pull spirits between one to another. In the event of a calamity, such as the meteor impact Xatu foretold, an agent of spirits bears the responsibility to find a suitable human to bring to the Pokemon world. To me, that is the job of an agent of spirits, the role that Gardevoir was cursed to bear. Right, because as we all know, Gardevoir didn't choose to become an agent of spirits. All of this started because of another Pokemon who possesses the power to turn humans into Pokemon, that being Ninetales. As you can guess, our discussion has brought us to the topic of Team Meanies, or specifically, Gengar himself. As simple as the story is in Rescue Team, Gengar is a tiny can of worms on his own, being the original human to visit the Pokemon world. So what's up with that? How does Ninetales have the power to make Gengar a human too? Well, maybe she doesn't. A detail that often may be forgotten is that Ninetales didn't turn Gardevoir's master into a Pokemon herself. It's said that when he ran and abandoned Gardevoir, Ninetales prophesied that he would be reborn as a Pokemon, and the balance of nature would be thrown into disarray. Of course, this prophecy ends up becoming true, and imagine how much time would have passed before the prophecy is fulfilled. Gardevoir's trainer may have gone on to live the rest of his entire human life, being reborn as a Gengar after he passed away from the human world. Ninetales didn't directly transform the trainer into a Pokemon, but she did create some sort of prophecy that ended up coming true. So now we have an order of events that took place. Gardevoir's trainer touches the tail of Ninetales. Ninetales attempts to curse him, but Gardevoir takes the hit instead, and her trainer abandons her. Gardevoir becomes an agent of spirits stuck between the human and Pokemon worlds, and her trainer eventually gets reborn as Gengar, a punishment for his misdeeds. This causes the natural disasters to begin occurring in the Pokemon world, calling for the help of a human. That would be you. But why did they need a human anyway? This part is unclear, as far as I know, but if I had to guess, the natural disasters being caused by Gengar, a selfish human, could only be offset by a human with a selfless heart. Gardevoir's duty as an agent of spirits was to find the perfect human for the job and bring them into the world of Pokemon. I also like to think that the natural disasters stop after the main story because Gengar ends up developing a selfless personality himself, ultimately doing everything he can to help the protagonist stop the meteor, knowing deep down that the disasters are a result of his misdeeds. Now, obviously, there is a lot more that can be said about Gengar, Gardevoir, and Ninetales, but we'd be getting off topic. The point is, we've established two prominent Pokemon who have the power to transform humans into Pokemon. Gardevoir, an agent of spirits who can pull humans to and from the world of Pokemon, and Ninetales, who has the ability to prophesize humans being reborn as Pokemon. Of course, Gardevoir's method is much more effective, as it should be, since her responsibility falls to bring a chosen human that can save the world. Lucky for her, she chose the one that was perfect for the job. But the truth is that it isn't always that simple. In fact, there is yet another being who can turn humans into Pokemon, and it isn't even a Pokemon itself. It's a non-Pokemon, non-human entity that acts against the main antagonist in Gates to Infinity. Let's move on from the rescue team games and dig into the crazy events that unfold in the fight against the bitter cold. The voice of life is a manifestation of the world's will to live, and it takes the physical form of a Hydreigon, ironically, a typically scary and destructive Pokemon. Hydreigon is first framed to the players as a bad and evil Pokemon, but that was all just a front to keep them from learning about the truth of its identity, that being, of course, the voice of life. The manifestation of the world's will to live itself is a pretty big deal in Gates, and if you know how the bitter cold works, you'd understand. If you don't know about the bitter cold, you might want to check out my video explaining how it works. But put simply, the bitter cold is a force existing to destroy the world as a result of the world losing hope and becoming a bad place. Hydreigon is the world's will to live manifested in physical form to fight back. And how does the voice of life fight back against this hopeless state the world has found itself in? Of course, by summoning humans. But this time, it's not to counteract any human-caused disasters. No, a human is the literal key to stopping the bitter cold, since only a human can withstand the winds of despair that expel from its core. Any Pokemon who gets too close will suffocate in the winds, but a human possesses the strength to persist and fight on. Simple enough. Except for the fact that it didn't end up being simple at all. Throughout the game, orbs of light can be seen floating into the sky as the residents of Post Town admire them for being pretty, but not knowing what they are. As you find out later, those orbs are actually the souls of humans returning to their world after being pretty brutally defeated by Muna's gang as they work to protect the bitter cold. But yeah, every single one of those orbs was a human that the voice of life summoned, thinking they would be the one to save the world. It's no wonder the voice of life became so attached to the player character. They finally found someone who can stand up against Muna. They found one that can actually save the world. But man, that is a lot of humans that were pulled into the world of Pokemon that failed the mission they were brought in for. This is the only Mystery Dungeon game that has explored multiple humans being summoned for the same purpose. And sadly, we never get to meet any of the others, or at least that we know of, but it's impressive that the Voice of Life possesses the power to transport that many humans into the world of Pokemon, even if it is in a super desperate attempt to find one that can turn the tide of fate. So, it does beg the question, how similar is the Voice of Life to Gardevoir? Is the Voice of Life an agent of spirits like her? I think no, but I do think the Voice of Life has very similar powers to an agent of spirits, just at an amplified scale due to their nature. But that being said, it is possible that there are more agents like Gardevoir. And I'll explain why, but first, let's circle back to the entire point of this video. How are humans chosen in the Mystery Dungeon world? It can't be that easy to find the right human to bring to the world of Pokemon. I imagine it as being a very long process that can take a lot of time and analysis. But in the case of the Voice of Life, they likely didn't have time to be selective. The threat of the bitter cold was so imminent that they just started grabbing humans left and right, holding out hope that one of them would be able to save the world. In a case like Rescue Team, where they only bring one human, I definitely think a discussion has to happen. I keep talking as if multiple Pokemon are involved, and that's because of a very small but notable piece of dialogue from Gardevoir, where she mentions that we sought out a hero and found you. That's right, we. We sought out a hero. This definitely makes it sound like Gardevoir may actually be part of a council of agents of spirit that work together to choose humans to be brought into the world of Pokemon for these exact situations. Of course, there is no clear connection between the Voice of Life and this council of agents that seem to exist, but I would like to imagine that they have some involvement with each other, given their similar abilities. Maybe the Voice of Life is even the head of the agents. It would make sense seeing how they're the manifestation of the world's will to live, and agents of spirit work to summon humans for the sake of saving the world. In a situation like the bitter cold, the Voice of Life probably took matters into their own hands and just went crazy summoning humans. No time for drawn-out council meetings, I guess. So while there isn't really enough information throughout the games to give a definitive answer, it would seem to me that humans are chosen by a council of agents of spirit, carefully considered and discussed based on how much good they have in their heart. As far as the personality test goes, I like to believe that's the council interviewing you so they can decide what Pokemon you'd best be turned into. So if you ever find yourself transported to the world of Pokemon, you can walk with confidence knowing you are worthy to be chosen specifically by the council. Or maybe you're one of thousands of Pokemon summoned by the Voice of Life to stop an even more threatening disaster. Either way, you're pretty lucky because I know I would love to go on my very own Mystery Dungeon adventure. And there you have it. It's a very specific point of discussion in regards to the Mystery Dungeon series, but it is a question that I was thinking about recently, so I thought it would make a semi-interesting video. I hope you did enjoy. Maybe you learned something. I always love talking about Mystery Dungeon, so even the most tiniest, insignificant details in these games are super fun for me to think about and talk and discuss. Hope you all enjoyed and have a great day. See you later.